There are women who walk into a room and instantly change the energy, not by what they wear, not by what they say, but by who they are. They radiate something deeper than beauty, something that cannot be described, only felt. This type of presence is not accidental. It is the result of a quiet inner discipline, a lifetime of choosing awareness over impulse, alignment over performance. We often assume attractiveness is visual, but true attraction, the kind that lasts, the kind that makes others feel safe, intrigued, and respected, is vibrational. It is a frequency shaped by stillness, self-respect, and spiritual clarity. And the most surprising truth, attractiveness begins in the nervous system. If your nervous system is grounded, centered, and at peace, people feel it. They are drawn to it. It feels like home in a world that is constantly in flight mode. Pause and reflect. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to be around someone who needs constant attention? Now think of someone who simply is. Calm, clear, steady. You feel safe in their presence, even without many words. That safety is the beginning of deep attraction. If you're new here, welcome to Self-Mastery, where we share timeless wisdom to help you protect your energy, elevate your mindset, and walk in purpose. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a message that speaks to your soul, strengthens your spirit, that could shift your entire path. Let's begin. There is a woman who walks into a room, not with noise, not with effort, but with presence. People do not always understand what they feel around her. They just feel it. A sense of peace and ease, a quiet magnetism that does not ask to be seen, but is impossible to ignore. She is not trying to impress. She is not desperate to be validated. She carries something within her that speaks louder than appearance, louder than performance. And that something is energy. An energy that commands peace, not attention. To understand this deeper, we must step away from the superficial definitions of beauty that dominate our culture. Beauty, in many ways, has become confused with display, the perfect angle, the perfect lighting, the perfect performance. But attractiveness, true, lasting, powerful attractiveness, has less to do with how you look and far more to do with how you feel to others. And how others feel around you is a direct reflection of the energy you carry. The kind of energy that doesn't beg for recognition, but that makes people feel safe, curious, and steady. This is not the type of attractiveness that fades with time. It is the kind that deepens with age. Imagine a woman sitting quietly in a crowded room. She is not the loudest. She is not the most decorated. But people glance at her again and again. There is something calming about her presence, something rare. When she speaks, she chooses her words carefully. When she listens, she does so completely. She has cultivated her inner world in such a way that chaos does not leak out into the spaces around her. Her presence is a sanctuary, not just for herself, but for others. Modern neuroscience shows us that human beings are deeply influenced by the emotional states of those around them. Through mirror neurons, we unconsciously mimic and mirror the emotions we perceive in others. When someone walks into a room with nervous energy, it spreads. When someone is genuinely at peace, that peace becomes contagious. This is why certain women, even without saying much, can shift the atmosphere. Their internal calm becomes a refuge to those who are constantly in emotional flight mode. From a psychological standpoint, this kind of woman is emotionally regulated. She does not let her moods control her behavior. She has built rituals and habits that anchor her. Even when the world is chaotic, she breathes with awareness. She moves with presence. And because of this, she becomes deeply attractive. Not just romantically, but spiritually. She is the kind of woman others want to learn from, lean on, and align with. In Eastern philosophy, There is a teaching that says, where the breath is calm, the mind is clear. Where the mind is clear, the heart is open. The energy of such a woman flows from the inside out. Her breath does not rush. Her thoughts are not scattered. Her heart is not closed in defense. This is not because she has had an easy life. In fact, often the opposite is true. She has walked through storms. She has cried in silence. She has faced betrayal and pain. But instead of allowing those experiences to harden her, she used them to become more aware, more present, more grounded. There is a story of an older woman who lived in a small village. She had outlived her husband, raised her children, and seen many seasons of life. People in the village began to seek her company, not because she gave them advice, but because when they sat beside her, they felt calm. Even without speaking, she had a way of making people feel at peace. One day, a young girl asked her, "How do you make everyone feel so safe?" The woman smiled gently and replied, "Because I have made peace with myself." That is the heart of this teaching. A highly attractive woman does not create calm by chance. She cultivates it. She has learned to sit with her emotions instead of escaping them. She has learned to breathe through discomfort instead of reacting to it. She has learned that attention fades, but presence endures. In relationships, this quality is especially powerful. Emotional chaos repels those seeking depth, but emotional steadiness draws in those who crave authenticity. She does not ask others to complete her. She invites others to join her in completeness. People feel this on a cellular level. They may not know why they feel calmer around her, why they open up so easily, why they feel seen without being judged. But it is because her energy speaks what words cannot. And in a world of performance, her presence becomes a rare kind of beauty. The kind that doesn't age, the kind that doesn't need to compete, the kind that radiates without effort. From here, we move into a closely related quality that amplifies this silent strength. This woman does not flood conversations with her opinions. She does not dominate space with words. And yet, when she speaks, people listen. She speaks less, but she says more. This principle, while simple, is profound. In a world overwhelmed by noise, the woman who has mastered restraint becomes magnetic. She understands that power is not in the volume of her speech, but in the clarity of her presence. She does not speak to fill silence. She speaks when there is something real to say. Her words carry weight, not because they are loud, but because they come from stillness. Speech, in its purest form, is an extension of thought, and thought is shaped by awareness. A woman who rushes to speak often speaks from impulse. But the woman who pauses, who reflects, who waits until her words are aligned with wisdom, she commands attention without ever demanding it. Consider this in the context of relationships. So many conflicts arise not from what is said, but from what is said too quickly. In moments of emotional heat, reactive speech damages trust. But when a woman has cultivated the discipline to observe her emotions before expressing them, her communication becomes cleaner, clearer, and far more attractive. There is a reason why silence can be more powerful than speech. Silence gives space. Silence allows reflection. Silence is where truth gathers. And so, the highly attractive woman does not rush to fill the air with her voice. She allows silence to do its work. And when she finally speaks, people lean in, not because she is louder, but because she is intentional. This principle is deeply connected to ancient wisdom. In Zen practice, the most profound teachings are often delivered through silence or a single word. The student who talks too much cannot hear, but the student who listens deeply begins to awaken. In relationships, the same is true. A woman who listens with full presence, who does not interrupt, who does not need to prove her point in every exchange, becomes magnetic. She listens, not just to words, but to energy. She hears what others miss. There was once a man who was struggling in his marriage. He went to a counselor and said, "My wife doesn't talk much anymore. She just listens, and when she speaks, it's always brief. But I feel like she understands me better than ever." The counselor smiled and said, "That is not silence, that is wisdom. This kind of communication cannot be faked. It arises from emotional maturity. It requires a woman to know her own mind well enough that she does not need to constantly express it. She is not afraid of being misunderstood because her presence communicates what her words don't. She has no desire to argue for approval. Her stillness speaks volumes." From a neuroscience perspective, studies show that deep listening activates regions of the brain related to empathy and connection. It calms the nervous system and deepens rapport. So, when a woman listens with full presence and speaks with restraint, she is literally shaping the brain chemistry of the relationship. She is creating space for intimacy to grow. We must remember speech is a tool, not a weapon. When used wisely, it builds bridges. When used impulsively, it burns them. The highly attractive woman knows this. She does not use her voice to dominate. She uses it to guide, to affirm, to express clarity. And sometimes she uses silence to say what words cannot. In moments of conflict, she is not the first to raise her voice. She grounds herself first. She asks, "Is this truth? Is this necessary? Is this kind?" And only when the answer is yes does she speak. This level of discernment creates relationships rooted in respect. It removes unnecessary drama. It builds emotional safety. And so, when she walks into a room, people feel it. They feel both her peace and her power. Not because she is the loudest. Not because she seeks attention, but because she is deeply aligned with herself. Her presence calms the anxious. Her words uplift the weary. Her silence awakens curiosity. This is the paradox of true attractiveness. It is not what you show. It is what you carry. It is not how much you say. It is how deeply you live. And it all begins within. There is a subtle quality that sets certain women apart, not through style or speech, but through emotional cleanliness. It is not a term often used, yet it carries deep significance. Emotional cleanliness means that you are not leaking unresolved pain onto others. It means you have learned the discipline of feeling without infecting, processing without projecting. The emotionally clean woman is not immune to suffering, but she does not weaponize her wounds. She has learned to sit with her emotions, to understand them, to metabolize them, so that what she brings into relationships is clarity rather than chaos. This trait is rare because it requires deep inner work. Many people live in reaction. A slight inconvenience, a misunderstood message, a feeling of insecurity, and suddenly there is an eruption. Accusations fly. Blame is scattered. Words are said that cannot be unsaid, but the emotionally clean woman does not act from her pain. She acts with her awareness. She has built the habit of noticing her inner turbulence without being ruled by it. There is a difference between honesty and emotional dumping. The first comes with self-responsibility. The second demands that others carry what you have not yet digested. The highly attractive woman understands this. She does not make others pay for what someone else did to her in the past. She does not punish her partner today for the betrayals of yesterday. Instead, she watches. She breathes. She names the feeling quietly: anger, fear, sadness. And then she chooses how to respond, not react. This is the mark of emotional maturity, and it is immensely attractive. It creates an environment where intimacy can grow safely. There is no walking on eggshells. There is no guessing game. People around her feel emotionally safe, not because she hides her feelings, but because she takes responsibility for them. She does not demand perfection from herself or others, but she does insist on consciousness. In psychology, Emotional regulation is a core trait of resilience and healthy relationships. The ability to soothe oneself rather than expecting someone else to do it is the foundation of adult intimacy. When a woman has developed this, she becomes steady, reliable, and deeply respected. People may not know how to define it, but they feel it. It feels like peace. It feels like being able to breathe around someone who does not need to control, manipulate, or discharge emotional tension onto others. Imagine a scenario. A man forgets something important, perhaps an anniversary or a promise he made. The immature response is immediate anger, cold words, distance, perhaps even threats. The emotionally clean woman, on the other hand, feels the disappointment rise in her. She acknowledges it. She lets herself feel, but she does not lash out. Instead, she waits until the initial emotional charge softens. Then she speaks, not with blame, but with clarity. This mattered to me, and when it was forgotten, I felt unimportant. I want to share this with you, not to shame you, but so that you understand where I'm coming from. This type of communication disarms defensiveness. It fosters understanding. And it builds a deep trust, because it's not based on fear or force, but on shared responsibility for emotional space. This is the gift of emotional cleanliness. It makes relationships easier, more respectful, more sustainable. A woman who lives like this does not hold on to grudges. She lets them pass through her the way a healthy body releases what is no longer needed. She recognizes that holding onto emotional toxins only poisons her own inner world. So she lets go, but not because she is weak. She lets go because her peace matters more than her pride. Eastern teachings often remind us, to be free is to empty the cup before it overflows. The emotionally clean woman does not allow her emotional cup to overflow onto others. She empties it through stillness, reflection, prayer, or journaling. And because of this, she remains light. Her energy does not feel heavy, manipulative, or volatile. It feels open, honest, and grounded. In the realm of relationships, this quality cannot be overemphasized. Men, especially those who are emotionally aware, are drawn to women who embody this. Not because they are passive, but because they are clear. They can express a need without demanding. They can communicate hurt without drama. And they can disagree without destroying connection. There was a woman who had every reason to be bitter. She had endured emotional neglect, betrayal, and years of being unheard. But instead of hardening, she made a vow, I will not let that darkness dim my light. Every morning, she meditated. She breathed into the parts of her that felt tight with unspoken pain. She wrote letters she never sent, releasing the need to be right. And as the years passed, people began to feel something different around her. They didn't know her story, but they felt her softness. A strength that did not come from armor, but from surrender. She had learned how to live emotionally clean. This strength naturally leads us into another form of attractiveness, one that is rarely talked about, yet unmistakable when seen. The woman who radiates purpose, not performance. She does not wake up each day asking, who do I need to impress? She asks, what is mine to do today? What feels aligned with who I truly am? She is not trying to meet the expectations of others. She is trying to meet herself more deeply, and this alignment makes her glow in a way no makeup ever could. There is a quiet confidence in a woman who lives on purpose. She walks differently. She does not chase attention. She is focused, intentional, and fulfilled from within. Whether she is an artist, a healer, a mother, or a businesswoman, she shows up to life with clarity. She knows her values. She knows what she stands for, and she knows what she will not tolerate. Performance, on the other hand, is exhausting. It requires constant external validation. It feeds on applause. It shrinks when not seen. But purpose is internal. It does not fade when others stop watching. It It grows in silence. It deepens in solitude. And it becomes most beautiful when shared, not for recognition, but from overflow. Think of a woman who spends her days serving others, not because she's trying to prove something, but because it aligns with her soul. When you speak with her, you feel that she is present. She is not calculating your approval. She is simply being herself. This authenticity is magnetic. It invites others to be more honest. It melts away pretense. And it draws in people who value depth over display. In neuroscience, we understand that intrinsic motivation, the kind that arises from purpose, activates the brain's reward system in a deeper and more sustainable way than extrinsic motivation. In simpler terms, when a woman does what she loves, not for applause but for alignment, she literally rewires her brain for joy. This joy shows up in her eyes, her tone, her presence. It cannot be faked, and it cannot be ignored. Purpose gives a woman direction. It protects her from manipulation. When a man tries to control or distract her, she sees it clearly, not from a place of ego, but from grounded awareness. She does not entertain people who dim her fire because she knows why she's here. And in relationships, this gives her an extraordinary kind of power, the power to choose love, not need it. There's a story of a woman who used to seek constant affirmation. Her self-worth rose and fell based on how others saw her. Then one day, in the silence of her own heart, she asked a different question. What do I value? Even when no one is watching, she began to write. She began to create. She started waking up early, not to prove anything, but because the morning made her soul feel alive. Over time, she needed less approval. And soon, people began to notice. Not because she asked them to, but because her purpose was glowing through her. Purpose makes a woman mysterious, not in a game-playing way, but in a spiritually grounded way. People wonder, what is it about her? It is not that she's hiding anything. It's that she is rooted in something deeper than the surface. She doesn't reveal everything at once because she's not trying to be consumed. She's trying to be real. And in being real, she becomes rare. She might walk away from a relationship not because she's cold, but because it no longer aligns with her values. She might say no to invitations that others would accept because her time is sacred. And she might choose solitude over shallow connection because her soul has no interest in performing. Performance seeks to impress. Purpose seeks to express. The woman who understands this difference becomes deeply attractive, not for what she shows, but for what she embodies. Her life becomes a quiet invitation. Come closer, not to consume me, but to walk beside me. And only those who are ready for that depth will remain. There is a Japanese word, ikigai. It means a reason for being. A woman who has found her ikigai is lit from within. Her light may not be loud, but it is unwavering. And in a world full of noise, this kind of light becomes a beacon. It guides others, not because it tries to, but because it simply shines. She does not compare herself to others. She does not compete. She blesses others on their journey, knowing her path is sacred. And because she is no longer performing, she is free. Free to love without losing herself. Free to walk away without guilt. Free to evolve without needing approval. In her presence, people feel challenged in the best way. They begin to ask deeper questions. They begin to slow down. They begin to notice their own distractions. And in doing so, they realize this woman is not here to entertain. She is here to awaken. And that awakening, once felt, is unforgettable. There is a rare kind of woman who carries herself with a quiet grace. She does not move with urgency. Her pace is unhurried, her mind uncluttered, and her presence calming. She does not chase stimulation. She does not need to be entertained. Her power lies in her stillness. In a world that is constantly chasing noise, novelty, and distraction, she chooses something different. She chooses inner stillness over external stimulation. Stillness is not the absence of activity. It is the presence of awareness. It is the ability to be with oneself without needing to escape. This is not something taught in modern society. We are conditioned to keep moving, to keep scrolling, to stay distracted. The moment silence falls, most people reach for their phones. The moment discomfort arises, they reach for something to numb it. But the woman who is deeply attractive has trained herself to be present in silence. She does not fear her own company. She is not running from herself. In fact, she has made peace with who she is, even in the absence of external validation. This kind of presence is magnetic. It draws others in, not through effort, but through energy. When someone has cultivated stillness within, others feel it immediately. There is no anxious energy pulling at attention. There is no neediness lurking beneath the surface. There is only presence, anchored, whole, and awake. And that presence becomes deeply attractive because it reflects something rare: emotional stability. In relationships, this kind of woman is a refuge. When storms come, she doesn't add to the chaos. She remains centered. This doesn't mean she is passive. It means she is responsive rather than reactive. She does not rush to fix or control. She does not panic when things become uncertain. Instead, she pauses. She breathes. She listens. And she trusts that clarity arises not from urgency, but from stillness. Stillness allows space for truth to emerge. It allows emotions to settle like silt in water. When you're constantly moving, agitated, and overstimulated, you cannot see clearly. Decisions made in that state are rarely wise. But the woman who practices stillness has learned the discipline of waiting. She allows herself to feel, but she does not act from impulse. She allows life to unfold, but she does not abandon her center. This is not a natural state. It is cultivated through practices like meditation, breathwork, walking alone in nature, and simply sitting in silence. She has trained her nervous system to rest. She has come to understand that silence is not empty. It is full of answers. She knows that clarity is not something you chase, but something that arises when the mind becomes quiet. There is a story of a young woman who went to an elder seeking advice. "I'm overwhelmed," she said. "I don't know what to do with my life. I'm anxious all the time." The elder simply handed her a glass of water filled with dirt and stirred. "This is your mind," she said, "always moving, always disturbed." Then she set it down. Minutes passed in silence. Slowly, the dirt began to settle. "And this," the elder continued, "is what happens when you sit in stillness. The truth becomes visible." This story is a mirror for relationships. When we are constantly stimulated, we bring chaos into connection. But when we are still, we bring clarity. A woman who can sit with her own discomfort does not project it onto her partner. She does not need constant reassurance because she has cultivated trust within herself. She does not rely on external drama to feel alive. Her aliveness comes from depth, not distraction. Modern neuroscience tells us that the brain thrives on rest. When we enter states of stillness, especially mindful stillness, the brain moves from beta waves to alpha and theta waves. These states are associated with creativity, insight, healing, and peace. It is no surprise, then, that people feel more drawn to those who regularly inhabit these states. They radiate calm. They become safe spaces in a chaotic world. Their energy feels healing, even if no words are spoken. There is a certain clarity that stillness brings into relationships. Consider a conflict between two partners. One is reactive, loud, emotionally impulsive. The other pauses. She does not suppress her truth, but she does not let the chaos of the moment dictate her response. She sits with the tension, breathes into it, observes the emotional waves, and responds only when the storm inside her has quieted, this response does not create more damage. It invites reflection. It teaches emotional safety. And over time, it creates an environment where love can deepen, not dissolve. Stillness also teaches discernment. When you are overstimulated, everything feels urgent. Every emotion feels like truth. Every desire feels like need. But in stillness, you begin to separate the passing from the permanent. You realize that not every craving must be satisfied. Not every fear must be obeyed. Not every thought must be believed. And this clarity makes you powerful. In the spiritual traditions of the East, stillness is revered, not because it is easy, but because it is the ground of wisdom. In Taoist philosophy, it is said, to the mind that is still, the whole universe surrenders. The woman who embodies stillness does not chase life. She aligns with it. She does not force outcomes. She prepares herself to receive them, and when others are near her, they feel this alignment. It softens their anxiety. It soothes their wounds. It reminds them of who they truly are beneath the noise. Stillness is especially powerful in romantic relationships because it reveals maturity. It shows that a woman does not need to control everything to feel safe. She trusts herself. She trusts the process. And because of that, she becomes deeply trustworthy to others. She does not bring urgency into connection. She brings presence. And this presence is what makes relationships feel like home. Consider a woman who has been single for years. She is not in a rush. She has learned to enjoy her own company. She walks by herself, eats by herself, creates by herself. She is not lonely. She is full. When she finally meets someone, she does not rush to define the relationship. She does not pressure, nor does she pretend. She simply shows up, real, grounded, and patient. The connection either deepens or it does not. But either way, she remains rooted. This kind of woman is not easily replaced. Her energy is rare. In contrast, think of someone who jumps from relationship to relationship, always seeking stimulation. There is always a new drama, a new crisis, a new high. But beneath the surface, there is emptiness. That emptiness can never be filled with activity. It can only be healed through stillness. Until a woman is willing to sit with herself in silence and meet the parts of her that ache, she will continue to seek outside what can only be cultivated within. Stillness is not about doing nothing. It is about doing the inner work that most people avoid. It is about sitting with loneliness until it becomes solitude. It is about sitting with grief until it becomes gratitude. It is about sitting with desire until it becomes discipline. These are the fruits of stillness, and they make a woman radiant. In relationships, such a woman is not easily shaken. When challenges arise, she does not collapse. She grounds herself. She returns to breath. She returns to presence. And from this space, she can respond wisely. Her partner feels this. They feel her strength, not as force, but as stability. This stability invites deeper connection. It creates space for truth, even if it's uncomfortable. There is a woman who every morning sits before the sun rises. She does not check her phone. She does not rush into the day. She lights a candle, closes her eyes, and breathes. In this space, she meets herself. She meets her doubts, her dreams, her fears, and she welcomes them all. This ritual, quiet and invisible to the world, is the source of her glow. It is the reason she can love without attachment. It is the reason she can speak without fear. It is the reason she can be alone without feeling empty. This woman may not always be noticed first. She may not be the loudest or the most glamorous, but those who encounter her never forget her. Her presence lingers. Her words echo. Her silence teaches. Because in her stillness, there is depth. In her stillness, there is strength. And in her stillness, there is love. Not the kind that demands, but the kind that invites. When a woman chooses stillness over stimulation, she becomes magnetic. she becomes a reminder of something sacred. She becomes a sanctuary, not because she is perfect, but because she is present. Not because she has no pain, but because she does not let pain define her. Not because she never falls, but because she knows how to return to center. Stillness is not something you wait to feel. It is something you practice. And with each breath, each pause, each quiet moment of reflection, it deepens, it anchors, and it transforms not only your own life, but the lives of everyone you touch. There is a quiet kind of power that many overlook, a power not of dominance, not of resistance, but of clarity. It is the power of boundaries, held not with bitterness, but with calm certainty. The kind of woman who commands deep respect does not raise her voice to draw a line. She doesn't use cold silence or loud anger to protect herself. She has mastered the art of setting boundaries without losing her warmth. And this balance, this union of strength and softness, is one of the most attractive and emotionally mature traits a woman can possess. We often think of boundaries as walls, as rejections, as tools of conflict. But true boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about defining the space where love can grow without distortion. They are invitations, not restrictions. They say, "This is how I take care of myself, and this is how I can show up for you with honesty and presence." A woman who holds her boundaries without bitterness has usually walked through deep emotional valleys. She knows what it feels like to give too much. She knows the pain of losing herself in the name of love. She has stayed in places too long, spoken too little for too long, tolerated too much in silence. But eventually, something within her shifted, not through anger, not through blame, through awakening. She realized that self-abandonment is not love. And so, she began to draw her lines, not to punish others, but to protect the parts of her soul that she could no longer afford to sacrifice. Boundaries, when rooted in bitterness, feel like punishment. They carry resentment. They say, "You hurt me, so I'm cutting you off." But boundaries rooted in awareness carry a different tone. They say, "I am responsible for my peace, and this is what I need to protect it." There is no need for rage, no need for guilt tripping, no need to over-explain, just clarity, delivered calmly, held consistently, and communicated with love. In relationships, this is transformative. The woman who holds such boundaries becomes emotionally trustworthy. She is not unpredictable. She doesn't explode without warning or withdraw without communication. She simply lives in alignment with her values. She does not expect others to read her mind. She speaks when something doesn't feel right. And when others cross a line, she doesn't spiral into drama. She reinforces the line firmly and peacefully. There's a story of a woman who, after years of over-giving, decided to change how she showed up in relationships. She began by asking herself one simple question before every yes: "Is this true for me?" And when the answer was no, she said it, without apology. At first, people resisted. Some accused her of changing, some called her selfish. But over time, those who respected her began to listen more carefully. They started to meet her where she was, instead of expecting her to stretch endlessly to accommodate them. And those who couldn't honor her space slowly drifted away. In the end, she wasn't left alone. She was left in peace. Many people fear setting boundaries because they think it will lead to loss. And sometimes it does. But what is lost was never truly aligned. And what remains becomes more real, more grounded, more intimate. You do not lose love by honoring your soul. You lose only the illusion of love, the kind that demanded you shrink, sacrifice, or silence yourself to be accepted. Healthy boundaries are not a rejection of others. They are a deep acceptance of yourself. They come from knowing what you value, what you can offer, and what you can no longer allow. They reflect your inner clarity, And this clarity gives others a map, not to control you, but to connect with you more respectfully. From a psychological perspective, boundaries are essential for emotional regulation and relationship longevity. When boundaries are weak or inconsistent, resentment builds. Small violations pile up, and what could have been solved with one honest conversation turns into years of silent suffering. But when a woman clearly communicates what she needs, what she will and won't tolerate, and what her intentions are, she creates safety. Emotional safety, relational safety, spiritual safety. This safety is not only for her, it is for the relationship. Because when two people know the edges of each other's souls, they stop guessing, they stop projecting, they start trusting. Trust doesn't come from perfection, it comes from consistency. And consistent boundaries create consistent trust. There is an important distinction between boundaries and control. Boundaries say, "This is what I will do to honor myself." Control says, "This is what you must do to make me feel safe." One arises from personal responsibility, the other from fear. One creates mutual respect, the other breeds tension. The woman who understands this no longer tries to change people. She observes, she communicates, and she makes decisions based on alignment, not attachment. A woman who holds boundaries without bitterness is also deeply compassionate. Because she knows pain, she does not shame others for their mistakes. But because she knows her worth, she does not allow repeated harm. She can forgive, but she does not forget who she is in the process. Her forgiveness is not an invitation for repeated violation. It is a release of the past, and her boundaries are the present commitment to protecting her peace moving forward. Stillness supports boundaries. When a woman practices stillness, she becomes more aware of what is happening within her. She notices when something feels off, even before words are spoken. She senses when her energy is being drained, even before it becomes visible. And from that awareness, she can act, not react. She does not wait until she is broken to speak. She honors the early whispers of discomfort. She listens to the soft voice inside that says, "This is not okay." And instead of silencing it, she responds. In romantic relationships, this makes her deeply attractive. She is not afraid to walk away, not because she is cold, but because she is clear. She knows that love without respect is not love. She knows that passion without peace is not worth her energy. And she knows that someone who truly sees her will never ask her to betray herself for the sake of staying. Men who are emotionally ready for depth are drawn to this kind of woman, not because she plays games, but because she is anchored. She does not seek to be chased, she seeks to be met. And she meets others with the same honesty she expects. There is no pretending, no manipulation, just truth. And this truth, while sometimes confronting, is always freeing. There is another story, a woman who was in a relationship where she constantly compromised her own values to avoid conflict. Every time her partner crossed a line, she made excuses. Every time she felt pain, she swallowed it. Until one day, she realized she was no longer herself. She had become a version of herself shaped entirely by fear, and so she stopped. She had a single conversation, not with blame, but with clarity. This is what I need to feel safe. This is what I will no longer accept. And this is what I'm choosing for myself. That conversation changed everything, not because her partner changed overnight, but because she finally stood in her own truth. This shift is not about becoming hard. It's about becoming whole. Bitterness is what happens when boundaries are not honored. When a woman keeps giving chances, keeps suppressing her truth, keeps betraying herself for the sake of harmony, she begins to rot inside. The bitterness grows. But when boundaries are expressed early, clearly, and calmly, that rot never takes root. She remains soft because she has been strong where it mattered most. And here lies the paradox: the softer a woman wants to remain, the firmer her boundaries must be. If she wants to keep loving freely, she must protect herself fiercely. If she wants to remain open, she must also be discerning. If she wants to be generous, she must also know when to say no. This discernment is not coldness, it is wisdom. The wisdom that says, I choose to give from fullness, not fear. I choose to stay only where I can be myself completely. And I choose to love without losing myself in the process. Boundaries are not the end of love. They are the beginning of real love. Because only when a woman feels safe within herself can she fully open to another. Only when she knows she can protect her soul can she give her heart. And only when she no longer fears rejection for speaking her truth can she experience the intimacy that truth brings. When she lives this way, her presence becomes commanding, not because she is demanding, but because she is unwavering, not because she is distant, but because she is deeply rooted, and not because she is defensive, but because she is devoted to truth, to peace, and to the quiet, powerful dignity of a woman who knows her worth. Attractiveness, in its truest and most enduring form, is not built on external performance, nor is it sustained by momentary admiration. It is the result of inner cultivation, where presence is more powerful than appearance, and peace is more magnetic than perfection. A woman who is emotionally clean, still in her energy, clear in her purpose, selective with her words, and steady in her boundaries radiates something far beyond beauty. She becomes a sanctuary, a place where others feel safe, seen, and inspired to rise into their own truth. She does not chase validation because she already lives in alignment. She does not beg for love because she understands her value. She does not fear solitude because her inner world is rich and her connection with herself is intact. In a society that rewards noise, urgency, and overexposure, she becomes a reminder of something sacred, the art of being deeply rooted, gently powerful, and quietly unforgettable. Not by being more, but by being fully herself. And that, in the end, is what makes her truly attractive.